Okay, we're going to get started now. Welcome to Find and Fund Your Summer Internship. This is presented by the Center for Careers and Internships. I'm Cheryl Whitney Lauer. I'm the Associate Director for Internships and Career Exploration. I'm also joined by my colleague Amy McGlashan, Director of Academic Initiatives and Special Projects. And then Karen White is a Senior Internship Coordinator for CCI, and she was the one out in the lobby helping to sign you in. Of course it's not working. Okay, here we go. Having a little IT problem. So I'd like to start out with what an internship is, or what the CCI definition of that is. So an internship is an experience where you get to get out in the real world and explore a career interest of yours. You get to gain some experience. You get to develop skills or apply skills that you have learned here at Middlebury. You get mentored by a supervisor because you're usually working for an organization. It's also a chance to establish networks and contacts in a field of your interest, to delve deeply into issues that you care about. And one of the good things about internships is it's a low stakes way to find out what you like and what you don't like. So a lot of times an internship will affirm, yes, I'd love to be in this field, I'd love to work for an organization like this, or it can be, no, this isn't really for me, and but it's a short-term experience, and then you get to move on and try something new. So internships at Middlebury can be paid or unpaid, and we're mostly talking about summer internships here. Summer internships are generally not for credit, and there are a few exceptions to that I'm going to talk about later on. Usually they're in person, but sometimes they can be remote or a hybrid of the two. And they can be in any field or interest area. So I'm just going to show you a series of photos that are from previous Middlebury internships that students have done, to give you the sense that internships come in all shapes and sizes. Whatever your interest is, you can find something that will fit what fits you. You're a unique person, you have different experiences, so what your friends do doesn't really matter. It really matters what you want to do and what's important to you. So this internship was a marine conservation internship in the Bahamas. This was a finance internship that took place internationally. It can be in healthcare or research. You could be working in a museum or art gallery. You could be working on Capitol Hill. This was an archaeology internship in France last summer. You could be doing environmental education with kids. Here's a pre-health internship, obviously pre-dental. The students were doing fashion, theater design internships, and other students do fashion internships. Sometimes students work at think tanks or do environmental field work. This was actually GIS related. This one was at the Pentagon with an alum. It can be related to environmental work. This was energy work on wind turbines. This one was a city planning, transportation, urban planning internship. Amy's going to talk a little bit more about some of our cohort internships. This was one of our cohorts in South Africa, which is a consulting internship. And this was another cohort internship here in Vermont, consulting, working with the Opportunities Credit Union. This was one in India, art conservation. This one was an anthropology, biology-related internship doing research on chimps in Uganda. This one took place in Kenya, working with a nonprofit or NGO. The student was pre-vet, so worked at a zoo for the summer. This one was health related, so the student did a lot of research and was presenting her findings at the end. Sometimes students want to combine their interest in athletics with something else, either coaching or data analytics, something like that. This student was working at a children's library. EMTs, that's often, we have a few each summer working on that. And then there's the whole communications field, journalism, writing, publishing. The student was working on a podcast. And then the student was in the film industry. He was doing animation for an independent film. So this was one of my favorite photos. So I hope that kind of gives you a sense of internships aren't always in an office or a cubicle. You can be doing just a wide variety of things, and they can be really fun and meaningful, and you can feel like you're contributing to the organization, but also learning a lot. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about remote internships, because obviously those have come up since COVID, and they can be a great experience for some students, but if you're considering a remote internship, I'd really want you to go in with your eyes wide open and think about, is that really the best practice for you? Oftentimes you really have to work independently. You have to work really hard to communicate with the other staff members. It's harder to be mentored. It's harder to stay motivated. So it can work for students who are really like to be independent, set their own schedule. It can give you some flexibility, but they can also be really hard. So I just wanted to say that the last few years, when we're getting evaluations from students who have done strictly remote internships, a lot of them have admitted it's really hard. I don't really want to work remotely. So I often get this question, who qualifies for an internship? And you all do. So first year students through graduating seniors can all do internships. Sometimes a student who is just graduating from Middlebury still wants to do an internship because they're still exploring, or they want to build some more skills, or they feel like that gets them a foot in the door. So you have lots of opportunities to do internships. So I've broken this into 3 different sections: focus, find, and fund. And the focus section that we're about to talk about is really just kind of self-reflection and how you want to do the internship and why. So these are the 4 questions maybe that you want to pose to yourself. So the first one is this the right summer for you to do an internship? I just want to step back and acknowledge that there's a lot of pressure to do internships. You might have friends who are in the process already or getting hired, and it's stressing you out. So I know there's a lot of expectations that you gain some experience during Middlebury, and it would be great. Typically students get 1 or 2 internship or research experiences under their belt while they're here in Middlebury. And I know some of you have come in with experiences already. So if you can kind of think ahead and think about all the windows of opportunity you have to gain experience, and if you're a first-year student and thinking, I probably should do an internship this summer, you don't necessarily have to. If you think about it and think about what are your other opportunities for gaining experience? If you want to go back to your summer job experience or working in a restaurant or whatever that is, and save an internship for another summer, you've got the other summers, you've got winter terms when you can do an internship for 1 month and get credit for it. A lot of students do an internship during their study abroad experience. And then there are lots of other ways to gain experience, being involved with student organizations, student government, residential life. Those are all ways you're showing leadership, you're gaining skills, community service, student jobs on campus, summer jobs that you've had before. So those are all ways that you're kind of building your story and building skills and experience as you go along. So if you do decide this is the summer for you, you do want to try to get an internship, one of the focus questions might be, where do you want to be? do you want to be at home or do you want to live somewhere else? Sometimes students say to me, I want to be anywhere but home. Or, I have relatives in San Francisco and Chicago and Portland, Maine, so I could be in any of those places. Okay, so that's really a good way to kind of focus your search geographically. And then think about, do you want to be in person? Would remote be okay, or would a hybrid experience be okay? So, think about, okay, are there different places where you could do an internship, or if you're limited to one place, like you want to be at home in St. Louis or wherever you live, then that's great. Then you focus your search that way. And then think about the broad areas that you're interested in and skills you have or impacts that you'd like to make either this summer or in the future. So just to give a couple examples, these are ways that you can kind of focus your search or your thinking about the internship. So if you're thinking about what are you interested in, you might say, I'm a psychology major and I love interacting with kids. So how could I combine those two together into an internship? And maybe that would look like doing tutoring with kids, or it could look like working for an organization that works with children who are on the spectrum. So whatever that is, you could think about how do you combine those together. Or you could think about it from the skills perspective. I'm a great writer, and I would love any kind of internship where I'm using my writing skills. It could be in communications, publishing, journalism, you could do it that way. Or I'm good with numbers, or I have GIS skills, think about that. Or you could think about what's the impact you want to make either in the future or this summer. So if you're really interested in legal issues related to immigration, maybe you want to get experience sometime, either this summer or another summer. Or you could just approach it like, I don't really care what I do. I want to do something meaningful with my summer. I want to work for a nonprofit or a political campaign. So if you need help on focusing your interests, CCI has a self-reflection guide, which has a series of questions that would be a great thing for you to do. So that's on the CCI website. You can make an appointment with a CCI advisor, or you can talk to alums and other students to help you, sort of navigate that part. And then you want to do your research and make sure that it's a good fit for you. So then you look at industry, internship types, and different organizations. And you can use handshake filters, which I'll show you later, which is really searching based on career industry areas. And then you can research what alums and peers have done who have similar interests to yours. And we have different platforms that we'd suggest, either Mid to Mid, LinkedIn. We have a list of past internships that Middlebury students have done. That's a resource to you. And think about talking to other students in student organizations. And then before we start talking about strategies for finding an internship, the next step for all of you, I would say, is to make sure that your resume is up to speed and the best it can be before you find the internships and before you start applying to them. So these are CCI's peer career advisor. They're highly trained, they're excellent. They can work with you on your resumes and your cover letters. They have drop-in hours called Quick Questions, and their Go link is go/PCAs, and that'll give you their schedule and their locations on campus. Okay, so finding an internship, and this is where we're turning. So I like to think about 3 different strategies for finding an internship, sort of broadly defined. One, that you apply to posted internships in databases. That could be Handshake, and I'll also show you some other databases or where you can find more targeted ones. Number 2 would be that you find an organization you want to work for, you research their website, and you apply directly. So let's say you would love to work for the Nature Conservancy, or you would love to work in publishing. So in that case, you can just go to the Nature Conservancy website, research if they have internships or positions available, you apply directly on their website. Same thing with publishing houses. Maybe you have to do a little bit of research and find out, oh, there's Simon and Schuster and there's Random House, and these are the places I want to look on the websites and look and see if I can apply directly. And then the third strategy would be creating your own by networking and contacting the organization directly. This would be examples. Maybe there's a startup that you've heard about, or there's a small nonprofit in your hometown. Maybe they don't advertise for internships, so they've never had one, but you can reach out to them directly and just say, I'm a Middlebury student, I want to gain experience this summer. I would love to, work for you. I really admire your mission. Are there projects that I could do for you? And then that will also benefit me because I'm gaining experience along the way. So we have lots of information on our website at go/internships. And then these are some of our top tips for finding an internship. So a couple of them I've already covered, but one obvious one is to make an appointment with a CCI advisor and say, I need some help. These are my interests. Can you help me find an internship, or how do I go about finding one? You apply to internships on Handshake. We'll go over some searches in a little while. I would say about 85% of the internships that you find on Handshake are paid, and then the others are unpaid. They're great unpaid internships, so that's fine too, and you can apply for CCI funding, and that'll be in the next section that I talk about that. And on Handshake, you can look for CCI Select and Cohort internships, and Amy's going to talk about that in a little while. Those come with guaranteed funding. As I mentioned, we have a section in Handshake called the resource section, and one of those resources is a list of past internships. That's a great resource. We also have the career community pages that I'll show you at the end. And then we have these weekly newsletters that come out in each industry area or each career path area, put out by the advisor at CCI. So there's a consulting, business, and finance newsletter, and there's a social impact one, and there's one for media and communications and the arts. So networking is a great way to find internships. I talked a little bit about that, and you all have a network that you can tap into, because there are 7,000 alumni and parents on Mid to Mid. Mid Connect is the section where you reach out to them. It's kind of like a Middlebury version of LinkedIn. And then there's the regular LinkedIn, which has about 48,000 alums on there. You can also tell all your friends and family and anyone you meet, just as you are having conversations with people, tell them what you're interested in, what your major is, what you want to do during the summer. So if you're at a family wedding, and you're just chit-chatting with people, you never know when there might be some sort of tip that comes up or some lead that you get. So I like to tell the story about a student from a couple years ago who was visiting her grandmother in a retirement home and met the grandmother's friend who asked her what was she majoring in, what was she interested in. So she said, I'm a neuroscience major, I'm really interested in genetics, I am looking for a summer internship. And the grandmother's friend said, well, it's your lucky day because my son is the head of a genetics lab in Boston, and here's his number, and I'm telling him that you're going to call him. And she got that internship. So that's networking, even though you would think that's not what you would think networking is. We already talked about identifying an organization and reaching out to them directly. And then, as I've mentioned a couple times, the resource section of Handshake has a lot of different targeted databases that you can look at, such as USA jobs.gov for government-related jobs, Going Global for international, idealist.org is a lot of social impact. Jopwell is a great resource for organizations that are looking for diverse candidates. So there's lots of good options there. And then do your homework and make sure the internship or the organization is a good fit for you, either before you apply for the internship, or if you get to the point where they're contacting you and want to have an interview. So you can ask alums for advice. Again, use Mid2Mid or LinkedIn. You can look at Handshake reviews, ask other students on Handshake. A lot of times when you look at a job description, there might be a list in that job description of other students who have worked there, and you can reach out to them directly. It doesn't have to be Middlebury students because lots of other schools use Handshake. You can look at that list of past internships and ask those students, was this a great place to work? What did you think about the supervisor? Glassdoor is a place where you can look at reviews for organizations. If you're in the situation where you're being interviewed for a position, you can kind of flip it around in your mind and say, I'm also interviewing this person. They don't know that, but I'm getting a sense whether this person would be a good supervisor for me and whether I feel like this culture would be a good fit for me. And then every job description has an application due date, but you should really plan to apply to those positions early because sometimes they fill them on a rolling basis. So if you wait till the deadline date, you might miss out on even being able to apply. And then just a little word about conducting your search in an ethical manner. So what I mean about this is if you've applied to a number of internships and you get an offer and accept that offer, but then you keep looking because you think, well, maybe this other internship that I applied to, I'd like even more. So I'm just going to tell this first employer that I'm going to work for them. But if I get another better offer, I'm going to then renege on that offer. So you can't do that. That's unethical. So if you're going to commit to an organization and tell them that you're working for them, you need to fulfill that obligation. CCI advisors can help you if you get the offer first from the organization that you don't really want. You know, how can you leverage that offer and contact another organization and say, I got an offer, but I was really hoping to, see if I'm a good candidate for this position, or whether you would be telling about the hiring decisions soon. So we can help with all that. Okay. I'm going to trade places with Amy, and she's going to talk a little bit more about other sources for getting help on your internship search, and she's going to talk about cohorts and CCI Select.
Hello. How many of you have had an internship before, just out of curiosity? Okay, so almost half, not quite. And how many of you have used some of the resources that Cheryl just went over to find it? Not as many, okay. So that means there are that many more ways to find an internship than the ones that we just showed you. So you should talk to the other students as well. Okay, so coming back to the peer career advisors, they really are our front face. They've got great hours. If you go to the website, go to Go PCAs, they've got hours not just in our office, but in the Q Center, the Anderson Freeman Center, maybe the Sushi Cafe, all over, in other words, and in the evening hours too, not just in the afternoons. Tomorrow, from 5 to 6:30, they're having more, it's hands-on help. So it's basically a drop-in session where they're gonna be more than one on hand in Johnson. So you can pop in before or after dinner and just get a little bit of help if you have some questions about the search, or want to start pursuing some of the ideas that Cheryl just threw at you. This is a great opportunity to show up. Just really quickly, and this is really also if you want to take I know a lot of students like to take photos of this so you know who the particular advisors are. This is all on the website too, by the way, but these are the different advisors we have, and you can sign up in Handshake or use Handshake to sign up for an appointment with any of them. You don't have to see a PCA first if you are clear about the area you want to pursue and feel like an advisor is really the person you want to meet with first. So Alicia for arts and entertainment, Tracy for social impact, education, international development. You can see the list. Tim for government and law, Matt, business and finance, Jeff for technology, Mary and Hannah over in CTLR for health professions and STEM, and me specifically for the cohorts, which we'll talk about, and then Cheryl for general advising. And we're going to get a little bit more into this when we talk about funding, but as Cheryl mentioned, in addition to those internships that are paid, we have a pool of funding that she'll be talking about that you can apply to if you get an unpaid internship. But within that, we basically set aside some of that funding and designate it to already existing internships for several reasons. A, because we think they have value. They might be with an alumni or a parent, and we know that they're a high quality opportunity and with a Middlebury connection. Or that they might be organized around a theme. So first, for CCI Select, there is a label for that. We also have created what we call a collection, which we will show you. So in Handshake, you'll see where we might have created collections, and CCI Select is one of them. So these are internships not in Vermont, because CCI Select in Vermont will be MidWorks for Vermont, but they are pre-funded or internships that come with funding all over the country, and across all kinds of industries and fields that are unpaid. So generally not finance, because those are paid, but in those fields that are generally unpaid. Well, I'm trying to think of a few examples of some CCI Select elsewhere. I know, off the top of my head. There are two in South Africa related to museums, for example, and the Norval Foundation. That's a CCI Select. Or with a nature conservancy, as a matter of fact. So a few like that, and you can do a search for them. And the list is small right now, but growing. So not within CCI Select, but I think they will be labeled the same, right? So the cohorts are going to show up and see. We just had this conversation today, and I'm sorry, I'm already getting confused. Cohort internships, anyone heard of STIVE or MidWorks or some of those other ones? Okay, so those are internships that are organized around a theme. So MidWorks for Vermont are internships here in Vermont that are really about getting students to think about staying in Vermont and enjoying Vermont and maybe coming back to Vermont to live. But they are across all kinds of issue areas, from the arts to promoting economic development, to working on healthcare policy, to the gamut, working for our local Addison Independent, working for 7 Days, the statewide publication, working for the Filmmakers Festival. So they are literally across the gamut, but they are here in Vermont. We have other cohorts organized around, so that might be organized around geography. We have another one, Cheryl referred to, the Vermont Business Strategy and Consulting Program, that is a little mini consulting firm, if you will, here in Vermont, working for some nonprofit organizations here. There's one in Minneapolis with the Minneapolis Institute of Art, working on curation and preservation and museum studies, basically. That's a small cohort, new this year. So there are a few. They won't have a collection, but you could search by cohort, and we also have a cohort page on our website. The Biblioteca David Kitson is teaching English for residents, citizens in Costa Rica, Nosara, Costa Rica. That's a community that's made up, there are a lot of expats there, so it's to local citizens' benefit to learn English, to be able to work in the hospitality and service industries. Vermont Innovation Summer is not one that we run, but our partners over at the Innovation Hub, working with, also here in Vermont, but working more with startups, or those on the edge of innovation kind of work. What am I missing? There may be a few others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. Dive is in South Africa doing consulting. That deadline is already passed because that is such a competitive and popular program, but you could certainly look at it and go to their website, and if you wanted funding, you could begin to talk with them about getting funded next year, but just know next fall. That application, handshake application, is usually like September 15th or October 1st to December 15th, because it's so competitive. We fund 15 students, and that's not even enough, but that's obviously all we can fund. And then in addition to CCI Select and cohort internships, there's a broader group that you'll see called Reserved for Mid. So that's an array that's all over the country, and includes these, but might be others where they might not come with funding, but where they have a special Middlebury connection, because again, there might be a parent or an alumni who helped set it up, and who we have a special relationship with. And this is specifically, so you'd only be competing with other Middlebury students. For any of these, you're only competing with Middlebury students. Okay, that's why we want you to know about them, basically. Here's the other thing about these, I'll say. How many of you are first years? Oh, yeah. How many of you are second years or sophomores? So here's a secret. When Cheryl gets to talk about funding, this does not count towards one of your, or as your grant that you are entitled. Every student is allowed to apply for one cycle of a CCI grant. These don't count. You get one of these, you still get to apply for one of the grants next year. So particularly for first years and sophomores, it's highly beneficial to know. It's a secret I like to make sure you know about. Very quickly, just to talk about credit, as Cheryl said, it is not general practice or policy for Middlebury College to award credit for summer internships. The time for those, if you want credit, is for winter. There are exceptions to that, and that is if you're an international student who's working for a US-based organization, then you have to do it for credit. That's a visa requirement, and you need to make sure that you're eligible for CPT. But then there's a course that we run in collaboration with Monterey that Tracy Himalisham in our office actually teaches, is this instructor for, but that you would need to enroll in. There are some of you sometimes where you get an internship where the organization requires that you do it for credit, and that's their own legal way of making sure that they don't have to pay you. And so in that case, you would also enroll in that course. But those are really the only two occasions where you would be doing an internship for credit for the summer. As it says, the credit does not count toward graduation. It's really just fulfilling that requirement for your internship. And for international students, it has to be related to your area of study, because that's how you qualify for the curricular practical training. And any of our, well, if you really have a question about that, international students should go talk to ISS first, ISSS, about the details around that. But we can answer some of the more general questions about how you enroll for the course and that kind of thing. All right, turning it back over to Cheryl.
All right, so this is a section on the CCI funding that we provide on a competitive basis. So our information is at go/summer funding, and that page will be fully updated in February. We have a lot of information from last year, and basically all the paperwork is going to be the same, but we just have to update with dates and new paperwork. So here are the three kinds of grants that we offer competitively. There's the $4,000 summer internship funding grant for unpaid internships. Yeah, I mean, there's a chance that might go up, but right now we have to say it's $4,000. And If it goes up $500, that'll be a nice surprise for everybody. But right now, you should only plan on $4,000. And that is for sophomore Febs and up to super seniors. And then first-year students or sophomore Febs are eligible for the first-year Explore grant. And then we have $1,000 arts grants, and that's for a short-term arts-related experience. And here's our timeline. February is when the funding applications will go live. We'll send out emails about that. April 4th is the funding application deadline. That's when you have to apply for the funding once you have your internship. May 2nd, we will send notifications out about whether you got the funding or not. And then the money, if you're getting that award, the money will go into your account by early to mid-June. So we always hope it's by the 1st of June, but sometimes it's not. So you should plan your internship start date accordingly. And here's who's eligible for funding. You have to be in good academic and judicial standing. You can't be a graduating senior or planning to transfer, or you can't be on leave for the spring or the fall of 2025. If you're studying abroad, that's fine, because that's authorized. You can't have already received a $4,000 grant from CCI through the competitive process, and you must be willing to complete all the required reflections, funding paperwork, and respond to emails. And that's a key point, because Karen has to track all the paperwork and try to make her life easier. So to apply for competitive funding, you must have been offered the internship and accepted it. So you have to commit to it. And then that's that April 4th deadline where you'll apply. Explore grants for first-year students have to be at least 4 weeks long and 25 hours a week. The other internships, the regular internships for the $4,000 grant have to be at least 8 weeks long and 30 hours a week. You can make a longer internship and fewer hours per week as long as it totals up to 240, but your internship can't be less than 8 weeks long. And it has to be one experience. You can't have two 20-hour per week internships together. So it has to be one at least 30-hour experience. So you apply for funding by the April 4th deadline. And before you apply for funding, you have to have your resume approved by a peer career advisor. So we've put that slide up a couple times, that you should do that now. That's a great thing to do during winter term. And you have to write a 500-word essay. So the prompt is up on the website. Again, that will all be updated soon. And then you're going to apply on this platform called Middlebury Apply or Mid Apply. And it looks like that. It's not active yet, but it will be. And then just a word about international internships, like either international students who are going home to do an internship or a domestic student who wants to do an internship internationally. There are a couple other steps. It has to be, your internship, if it's going to be funded, has to be reviewed by Middlebury's Global Operations Committee. There's a little bit of extra paperwork. And then you'll also have to register your travel once you know what your flights are and what your dates are. So those are 2 extra steps. And then just about what we don't fund. So we don't fund classes and trainings or experiences that you have to pay for. And exceptions are those arts grants can be used for dance festivals or dance trainings if you're a dance student. We don't fund research with Middlebury faculty members because there's another pot of money on campus that funds those, so CCI does not fund those, but we do fund undergraduate research positions with non-Middlebury faculty, so at another university or college. We don't fund self-directed projects. We don't fund internships that you have a direct relative as your supervisor. It can't be your mother or your father or your aunt or your uncle. And we don't fund paid positions unless it's very low paid, like you're getting less than $4,000 for the summer. Sometimes there are organizations that'll give you a $2,000 stipend for the whole summer. And in that case, you can apply for the $4,000 grant and tell us what you're getting paid. We would subtract that amount and bump you up to the equivalent of what everyone else is getting. So if you're getting $2,000 from your employer, we'd give you another $2,000. And in most cases, there are other places you can apply for funding on campus, but we all communicate and collaborate with each other. So in most cases, you're only going to get funded by one office. But, you know, we'll decide like, okay, we'll fund this student and you can fund that one. And then I'm going to close before I get to the hands-on part and show you about Handshake, just examples of ways Middlebury students have found internships. So on Handshake, a notice or you know, communication from their professor, on idealist.org or USA Jobs, which is one of those targeted databases I told you about, emails that CCI sends out, or the student had visited a museum before, thought it would be a great place to work, reached out to the museum and was given an internship. The student talks about networking efforts with alums on LinkedIn and Mid2Mid. The student was interested in undergraduate research, like scientific research, and Google searched researchers. You know, you might look at universities that are in your home city, or if you have a particular scientific interest and you want to do some research, you know, you look at who are some professors around, you know, who are doing research that I'm interested in, and I'm going to reach out to them directly and see if they would take me on. And then this last student found out about Breakthrough Collaborative while searching for summer internships. Again, searching on Google and LinkedIn, and then talking to Middlebury grads who also interned at that organization, a referral from a fellow student who did the internship the previous summer. This one I like, a student had read a paper in class and reached out to the author of that paper to see if they had any opportunities for them for the summer, sent them their resume and some references and had an interview and got that internship. Or, you know, you all probably listen to podcasts and there's some interesting organizations that you hear about. You can reach out to, you know, that organization that you've heard about. The student was reading a magazine in a store, said, wow, this is really interesting. It was all about cooking and foods, and reached out to the publisher, got that internship. Researching environmental internships, if that's what you're interested in, and then finding internships in a CCI newsletter. Okay, so that's the end of this presentation. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's a theme to a lot of those methods, and excuse me, well, if you think about it from the employer's perspective, an undergraduate just reaching out to them out of the blue, I mean, talk about how to make a good first impression when you don't even know them. That doesn't happen very often. And so you're already showing initiative, you're showing leadership, you're showing curiosity. So you're already starting the process from a really good place. So how many of those people who said they found their internships in those other ways, how many of them found them kind of like doing that, like just doing your own research? Not many.
A few.
A few.
Yeah.
Anyway, if we had more time, we would solicit some of the, pardon me, I'm going to stop talking.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to underscore that.
Okay, I'm just going to switch to Handshake for a minute. Okay, so this is what your Handshake page looks like when you first sign on. So if you go over to the top right-hand corner, there's a little circle with your initials in it. And if you go there and go down to My Career Interests, there's a series of questions that you should all make sure that you answer, because then Handshake knows what your preferences are and can send you notices about different internships. And by doing this, there's one section here where you can sign up for those newsletters that I talked about, this section right here. So if you wanted to be on the Arts, Media, and Communications newsletter, you would check that one. If you wanted to get finance, consulting, and business, and you wanted to get social impact, you just check all those and then click this green Save button down below. And then be sure you answer the two sections here too. So that just makes it more complete. Okay, so now I'm going to go and just do a sample internship search for you. So you go to the Jobs tab, and then up here on those bubbles along the top, you click on Internship, and then that opens this All Filters purple bubble. And what I would do is go to the industry section right here, and then there is this down arrow, and you can just scroll through this list and click off anything that's interesting to you. So I'm going to do natural resources and see what else. Whoops. Natural resources, let's say international affairs, and I'll do one more. Oops. Government, local, state. Okay, then I'm going to show results. And then let's say I've got some locations. So I'm going to say that I could be in Boston or Washington, D.C. Okay, and then show results. And so that's giving me 60 jobs. So if I didn't put in the locations, there would be a higher number. But this is a way to really focus on what you're interested in and the location. And then you can go through that list and click on different ones that you think would be interesting. So here's, maybe I want to look at this environmental justice internship at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Okay, and then if I want to try one other little search, I'm going to clear that. I'm going to put it back on internships. And then I can do, I could also do by job function. So that would be, let's say I want something legal related. So here's paralegals and legal assistants. Let's say I'm interested in journalism or writing journalism. So you just kind of have to put in different things that you can think about. And then show results. That gave me 92 that way. So those are just two different ways of doing searches. And then I'm going to bring Amy up again, and she's going to show you how to do the collections and the cohorts. And then I'll come back and just finish up with the resources.
And so to distinguish between the filters that she just showed you and collections, so collections are what we've curated in our office in ways that we think it would be, in areas that we think would be of interest, and to make it easier for you to find. So where are we going back? Yeah. There we go. Ooh, go. Why is it? It's so hard to do this looking at the screen. Well, and you can do it. Let me just show you. I should stop looking at that, and it's a lot easier to look at this. So just so you know, you can find the collections right there. So these aren't all of them, but these, so this is one where you don't have to like search. I mean, you are searching in Handshake, but that's the whole design, which is right there on your dashboard. So for example, here's MidWorks. So that's that subset of CCI Select that are based here in Vermont. And right now there's only 10 listed, but I can tell you there's going to be about 50. We hope by the end of January. So the Shelburne Museum in their conservation, Shelburne Farms working in environmental education. There'll be some, I know, for the Green Mountain Care Board. There'll be some for Vermont Future Project, which is working on economic development. So these are just the Chamber of Commerce. So those are just the ones that are posted already. Let me see if it goes back there. No. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so. But we have another, is the Reserve for Mid visible yet? No, not yet. So there will be the one that says Reserve for Mid. It's not live yet. Yep. So here are, again, all of the ones that come with CCI funding. So it'll include the midworks, it'll include some of those other cohorts, but it also includes some of the other ones I mentioned, like the curatorial internship in South Africa, in Cape Town, with the Norval Foundation. Or, can we go back? Nope. I'm just curious, there we go. What are the others? Oh, the Minneapolis one I mentioned. And that, oh, and they're working with, no, that's a midworks too, because that's EMT. So that's all that's in there at the moment. But there, again, there will be a lot more. How many did we end up with for CCI Select? Yeah, so again, by the end of January, there's probably going to be close to 100 internships in there all over the country, not just in Vermont. And another collection, as I mentioned, that you'll be wanting to see, and it's just not visible to you yet as the reserve for mid, but there's also, so some of our advisors are creating collections, so renewable energy, technology. These might not be just internships though, but this is where you can look for collections. Does that make sense? And we're creating new ones all the time. So in fact, if you have a suggestion for one, let us know.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to finish up by showing you how to make an appointment. So Career Center appointments. Then you schedule a new appointment. Click here. And then let's say you want one on arts and architecture, or communications or marketing. You click there, and then the available slots show up with that advisor. And then you just click on that, whatever one you want. And you can do that with any of those categories. If you'll see the health professions and science advising, those advisors, even though it's showing up there, the small print says to email them directly. They're not on Handshake, so you can't make an appointment with them on Handshake. They work at CTLR, Mary Lothrop, and Hannah Benz. So for them, you just contact them directly by email. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is that resources section that I've referred to a couple times. So this is it. And the first one is those career communities. So you click on that to open it up. And then you go to the one that you want to, whoops, where are we? So let's say we want to go to the social impact one, which covers international development and food and agriculture and environment. And then on the right-hand side, it's all divided into those different sections. So resources for climate change solutions, or nonprofits, or I know there's a global health in here as well. So all the pages are set up to, and they're curated with all these great resources from the advisors. And okay, then I go back to the resources, all resources, and I won't open all these up, but Mid to Mid is that alumni networking platform, which is really a great resource for you. You can access it here. Here's that list of past internships right there. Going Global is a great place to look for international internships. There are also big city guides too, US city guides, so you can look, you know, for internships in San Francisco in general. And then idealist.org, I've talked about that a couple times. That has great environmental, education, nonprofit, international positions. And I'm just going to open that up because that's just a really useful one. So you'd go here, put it on internships, and then right now it says Chicago, Illinois, so we'll go with that. And then I'm going to go and look by issue area. And so the things that you're interested in, let's say you're interested in arts and music and conflict resolution and disaster relief and economic development and housing and homelessness, hunger and food. Not sure why. Sometimes you have to play with this a little bit. put in a default radius of 25 miles and then search. Okay, for some reason that's not working right now, but usually it does. Or if you're in a smaller town and that's where you want to be, you can look for organizations that fit those categories, okay? So your hometown, put in your hometown or your city, and then search by those interest areas. And you would come up with organizations that fit your interest areas, and that's when you contact them directly. So I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions before we end completely? Thank you all for coming, and I hope that you know who to go to for help now. Okay, thanks.